Alexandra, I don't guess there's any way I can, well, it does show recording in process. I see a little red thing up at the top that's small, but that
Yep.
indicates we're recording.
Once I start the live stream and the recording, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a red box that says live and a round kind of bullseye-looking symbol that indicates we're recording.
Okay, I see that. I had not known where to find that before. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the Wednesday, February 17th, 2021 session of the North Carolina Property Tax Commission. We have one matter before us today, and that's the RebPat Leasing LLC 19 Property Tax Commission 0599. And the county is represented by Mr. Adden and Mr. Charles Graham, Mr. Tracy Frost, appearing pro se for the appellate. Let me read a statement before we get officially started. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every commission member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearance of conflict. Does any commission member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the commission today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. Seeing none, I'd also point out today that one of our commissioner members, Alex Guest, is unable to be with us today. I think he will be back with us tomorrow. So we have this one case before us today. Let me point out kind of the standard that we're operating on, as set out by the North Carolina general statutes and also our court cases that govern us. Ad valorem tax assessments are presumed correct. In order to rebut the presumption, the taxpayer must present evidence to show that an arbitrary method of valuation was used or that an illegal method of valuation was used, and that the assessment substantially exceeds the true value in money of the property. So that is the standard that you'll need to meet today on behalf of RebPat Leasing LLC. And we will start by having opening. Let me ask, are there any pending motions or anything we need to dispose of before we get into the opening statements? Anything, Mr. Adden? You broke up, Mr. Adden. Okay. Okay, for some reason we're not hearing very much. You want to do a little test for us? It's not good. We hear a little clicking noise.
I don't know that it's the headset, Mr. Adden. The picture is very jumpy, as is the sound, which indicates generally that's a bandwidth issue or something along those lines.
If I can suggest it, if he wants to stay muted, we can call him through the WebEx, and that way we'll see his video, but we'll be able to hear him like we've done in the past.
Did you hear that, Mr. Adden? Yeah, we're not hearing you at all. If you'll, what do you need him to do, Mrs. Vendette?
Nothing. I can get his phone number from Steve, and we'll call him through the WebEx. If he could just give a thumbs up saying that's good, that would be nice.
Are you hearing us, Mr. Adden? If you are, give us a thumbs up. Apparently he's not hearing us. He's getting his phone out. Looks like he's got an iPhone there. Ask him to see if he can come up on his iPhone and cut his Wi-Fi off. Mr. Adden, are you able to hear us now? Apparently not.
Yes.
Steve, can you call him and
Thank you.
ask him to
Um,
shut up?
Mr. Hunter, I'm calling him right now through
Okay.
the WebEx.
Okay. Ask him if he'll shut off his computer and see if he can come up on his iPhone and cut off his Wi-Fi and just use his data. I was able to do that yesterday and it worked when I had some trouble, or Monday.
Alexander, I just spoke with Mr. Adden and he's ready for your call whenever. He'll put his video up and talk over the phone.
Okay, that sounds good.
Interesting experience.
Interesting times.
Yeah, we have these issues with doing virtual. Seems like almost every day. But we're able to resolve them.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Adden, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Perfect. We can hear you as well.
Okay.
All right, do you have us just on the phone or did you log in on your iPhone?
I'm just have you on the phone. I mean, I'm on my
Okay.
phone.
Okay. If we take a break or something, you might want to see if you can just shut down your computer and come up on the iPhone. I
Yeah.
was able to do it yesterday, Monday on
Okay.
another matter. It worked. I shut off my Wi-Fi, so I was strictly on the cellular data. All right. Now, I was asking Mr. Adden, any motions or anything pending that we need to dispose of before we get into the opening arguments?
No motions.
Okay. Mr. Graham, Mr. Frost, is there anything pending that we need to dispose of before we have? I noticed y'all did enter into a pretrial order, so anything else that we need to see about before we get into the opening arguments?
No, sir.
All right, well, we'll start out with opening arguments on behalf of the appellate. And so if you can briefly tell us about your case and what you will contend, then we'll hear from the county in an opening statement, and then you'll have a chance to offer your evidence. Mr. Graham.
Okay, so this is concerning parcel ID 08003207 and 08003202. We're appealing a value that was assessed by the Mecklenburg County folks to the state. Our appeal is based on we feel like that the value that was assessed on the property is arbitrary at best. There are some unique circumstances involving the property as it relates to the other values adjacent. And as from an income perspective, the value proposition is not consistent with what the market would afford such a value.
All right. And you contend the values should be
$2,064,000.
for the total of the two lots.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr. Adden, we'll hear from you on the opening statement.
Yeah, these are two parking lots, adjacent parking lots in uptown Charlotte, and the county's evidence, we believe that the proper method for valuing these properties is the sales or market approach as opposed to the income approach. We think that the income approach does not take full advantage of the values of these properties, what a willing buyer and a willing seller would transact. The county has at least 9 comps of similar properties in uptown Charlotte. The county contends the value for the combined value for the two parcels is $3,324,900. That's about, I believe it's a $152 per square foot. The taxpayers' contention of the $2 million value comes to about $95 a square foot. The comps that we'll talk about range in value from $140 a square foot to $260 a square foot. Property in Uptown Charlotte, vacant land in Uptown Charlotte, is at a premium, especially as of January 1, 2019, the revaluation date.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, at this time, we'll allow you to offer your evidence.
I'm going to allow Mr. Falls to, if you don't mind, to review the income piece as it relates to the property. And one comment I might make is that this property is situated in between two other properties, and it's unique in that I don't think that someone, i.e. the people that, like, for example, the folks that purchased the property across the street for the purpose of building a Publix grocery chain complex, would pay the same amount of money for this residual interim use parcel that sits. There's really nothing you can do with the property other than park vehicles on it. So it's arbitrary at best to assign a similar value to that piece. We feel like as it would be relative to these other properties, which we are certain were purchased with development in mind. So that's and so I would let Mr. Falls speak to the how the income approach.
Okay, Mr. Frost.
Okay, and we had 2 years of income, which was January 18 to December 18th, was previous to the 1st of January, or January 2019, that the city set, or the county set as the date for what the parcel was worth. In 2019, we received a larger amount of rent, which was $103,200. We felt like on the net income of $103,200, that being as a vacant property with no amortization or depreciation, and very little other expense, that we ought to expect at least a 4% return on the property. Then we added a 1% property tax value to it to give us a cap rate of 5%. Figuring the cap rate to get to market value, it amounted to $2,064,000. Now, we felt like that previously, before the tax double plus some, that we were getting a fair return, but this has really cut us an unfair return on this situation. And some of the properties that they've used as examples are pieces that are next door to a property that could be tied in with it. Some of them were larger parcels. Some of them were parcels that were vagrant infested. They wanted to get, people wanted to do something with the county and the city. So because of the fact that we're talking about 22,000 feet that is surrounded by all other properties, and no one was interested in buying our property for anywhere near that kind of money, that we felt like we should appeal, basically on the fact that when we appealed with the county, the assessor that handled that property told us that every piece up and down that street was going to be valued the same, which I think is a very arbitrary statement. And that so ends what I have to say there on that.
All right, Mr. Graham, what other evidence do you want? And you have some exhibits, I believe, so you want us to have
Well,
put those in evidence?
Well, the only exhibits that I'm aware that you've been provided are these income statements that reflect the amount of income that the property received prior to the evaluation and post-evaluation, and the cap rate as it relates to the income stream, and the fact that the taxes now represent 30% of that revenue stream.
Okay, you said that your property would not be suitable for you thought development, and this is the only use. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when you look at that property, it fronts North Tryon Street. The front parcel does 608 North Tryon. The back parcel, 113 East 9th Street, is basically the rear end of the property with an alleyway that dumps out onto 9th Street. So the configuration of the combined parcels it has an odd configuration to it, and the parcel to the north and south of us are owned by another owner. So in order for the property to be developed, I mean, obviously that would probably be the only suitor, and we've actively marketed the property over the last several years, and we haven't had any takers, and the main reason, or the deterrent for that reason, would be that whoever would be the purchaser of the property would be at the mercy of the people that own the property to the right and left of us. So for there to be a value assigned to that interim use piece, or that remnant piece along the corridor, and to have a consistent value with other properties that are currently being developed, as I think the property directly across the street, somewhere around $150, $160 a foot, which is a much larger parcel, by the way, and has the potential to provide a developer a much larger ROI. I'm not sure that somebody would be willing to invest if that's the ROI number they're using for their land procurement. I'm not sure that number works for them on our lot. There's not really anything you can do with it other than park on it.
Okay, we'll admit your exhibits. Anything else that you want to present?
Well, the only other thing would be that if we could find somebody that could use the 22,000 square feet, and even a big fast food restaurant like Chick-fil-A wouldn't be willing to pay more than $600,000 to $1 million for that property, and that ain't going to happen, because they're not even going to get it zoned for that. So that's the situation we're in. It's not that everything ought to look alike on Tryon Street.
All right, if you're through with your evidence, then cross-examination by Mr. Adden.
Yeah, Mr. Faust, you said that you contend, I think you stated there at the end that the county was valuing this property the same as other property, and you consider that to be arbitrary. Is that your defense?
Well, I think it is. I don't think that it's the properties are a little bit like people. They all don't look the same, and they all don't have the same functions. So therefore, why are we trying to say that all of them are worth the same amount of money when you can't give the one we got away almost?
You could give it away to me, Mr. Faust. I'd be glad to take it if you want to give it away. Now, this property it fronts, the one parcel fronts on North Tryon Street, correct?
Yes, sir.
And basically, for the commissioners who aren't really as familiar with Uptown Charlotte, the center city is an area that's sort of bounded by I-277 and I-77, correct?
I do agree with that, sir.
And this is inside the center city,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And the heart of the center city is basically the intersection of Trade and Tryon, correct?
I would agree with that, sir.
Okay. And this property is 6 blocks away on North Tryon Street from the heart of the center city.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And the block that this property is in, the adjacent to your property are parking, or the 2 parcels adjacent to your property are actually used as parking lots too, correct?
That is correct.
So a person who wanted to purchase your property could also offer to purchase the parking lots adjacent to yours to assemble a larger piece of property, correct?
They could if somebody wanted to do it, and the person that owns it wanted to sell it.
Yeah, you're familiar with the term assemblage though, correct?
Yes, sir.
And buyers frequently have to purchase property from from different owners in order to assemble a larger tract to develop, particularly uptown property.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with that? Okay. Now, the combined property, the combined value of your property at the $2 million that you contend is worth comes to about $95 a square foot, correct?
Yes, sir, approximately.
Do you
Which by the-
have,
but
do
which-
you have the, pardon me?
I was going to add, which by the way is consistent with a evaluation that was done by Rocky McAllen. It was
Object. There's no evidence of any appraisals of this property. You did not bring an.
Yeah,
You did not have an appraiser.
We did not submit it, although it was submitted for the adjacent parcels.
We would sustain the objection, Mr. Graham. There's nothing before us about any other appraisal, and we don't have
All
any
right.
witnesses or anything.
Fair enough.
Mr. Faust, would you look at the county's exhibit number 5, which is on page 9 of the exhibit packet, exhibit number 5?
All right, give me 1 second to get it out, please.
Yep.
Exhibit 5 or page 5?
Exhibit 5, which is on page 9.
All right, sir, 1 second, I'm working on it. I'm a little old and my fingers don't work as good as they used to. All right, sir, I finally arrived.
Okay, now, I'm not going to go over all 9 comps with you, but I would like to bring your attention to comp number 3. Now, your property is your property is 21,605 square feet combined, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the comp number 3 is a parcel that's 18,513 square feet, correct?
Yes, sir.
And comp number 3 is less than about a quarter of a mile from your property, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it sold in March of 2018 for $3 million. You agree with that?
That is correct, sir.
And that comes to $162 per square foot.
I think so, sir.
And the county's value of the $3,324,900 comes to $152 a square foot for your property, correct?
That is correct.
And am I correct that you're relying completely on the income approach to determine the value of your property?
Well, sir, it happened to be the best way to approach the property due to our situation. We do not have the same situation where you've got three comparables surrounding each other where they paid that price for it, sir.
You're not relying on any sales to support your value, are you?
No, sir.
You
Don't think we can go back, according to what I've understood is the guidelines for having this type of presentation. We can't go back 5 or 6 years.
No.
Nor do we.
What
Nor do we. Go ahead, sir.
Now,
I'm
neither
sorry.
you nor Mr. Graham are appraisers, are you?
No, sir. We're not
And
in that
neither
category.
you nor Mr. Graham have received any appraisal training, have you?
I've received a little, but not enough that I got any kind of diplomas.
And other than just using the income approach, you haven't used any other method to value your property?
Well, yeah, but we went to work on this because it was the best comparison, sir.
Now, what specific appraisal standard do you believe the county violated in valuing your property at $3.3 million?
Well, I feel that way because they didn't take our situation or the situation of people in these districts. My understanding from the county assessor that we dealt with was that everything uptown was almost worth that kind of money on Tryon Street. And to me, that was arbitrary. And when we go to looking at these comparisons that they've laid out, you can see where they take 3 pieces of property and put together for an assemblage. And of course, somebody paid more money for it. But they're not going to come down and pay that kind of money for our 22,000 square feet without getting the adjoining property.
Assemblage, so it's a distinct possibility though to sell your property, correct?
It's possible that the pandemic could end tomorrow, but I mean, those are all, those are things that are, I mean, that's arbitrary in and of itself. But it is a possibility, yes, but I mean.
Again, what
I mean, we can't, but you can't base value on something that might happen. I mean, you know.
What specific standard appraisal standard do you contend the county violated?
That they didn't, that we want them to consider the income approach.
And you want the county
and that their appraisal was arbitrary and that it did not provide consideration for the fact that this property is an interim use piece of property that simply cannot command the market value assigned to it based on the other comp values that you're using to come up with this $157 per square foot value or whatever.
So you want the county to use your income approach and to disregard the sales approach. Is that your testimony?
Well, I don't think that we can make the county do anything, but I think they ought to take in some things that are fair to everyone and not just what it might be. As you know, as Don Meredith used to say, if it would be Christmas if it was candy and nuts all the time, but it's not.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, questions? Well, let me ask you, other evidence and that you would like to present after you've been cross-examined by the county? Mr. Frost, Mr. Graham, is it Frost or Faust?
It's Faust, F-A-U-S-T.
Faust, okay. All right.
Yes, sir. But
All
I'm
right.
used to having to pronounce that way.
Okay. All right. Sorry for my pronunciation. That's one.
Oh, it's no problem at all.
I wrote down Frost when it was being discussed earlier before we came live. All right. Then if you're through with your evidence, we've got your exhibits admitted.
I do have one question I'd like to ask.
Okay.
I know that everything is valued on the highest and best use, but we feel that's arbitrary for that reason at all, because if that were the case, then these streets would all have the same businesses in the same situations going down the street. And that's not what happens in the real world.
All right. I think that was a statement probably. Okay. All right. Questions from commissioners?
I'd like to ask Mr. Adden a question.
Mr. Wheeler, Chairman, Vice Chairman Wheeler.
These comps that is there 13 of them? No.
9.
Are they parking lots or are they just vacant parcels that sold?
They are parking lots. Comp number 1 is a picture of it on the county's exhibit page 13. And you can see it's a parking lot.
Okay, so they're all parking lots.
Comp number 2 and 3 are parking lots. Comp number 4 is actually is vacant land you can see it's under construction. Comps 5 and 7 are parking lots. And yes, so and I have pictures of those, and those comps that I just mentioned are the comps that are closest to the taxpayer's property. In fact, comps 2, 3, and 4 are really 2 blocks away from the taxpayer's properties.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Thank you. Further questions from commissioners? Let me ask Mr. Graham, Mr. Adden responded to to Vice Chairman Wheeler's question. Do you have anything to add about his response to the question?
Well, yes, these are parking lots, but they're in strategic proximity to people that need more land. For instance, this little comp 7 and 5, as you can see, it's a ballpark deal.
or it's the arena. It's actually the
Arena.
arena. And then you've got, and then some of the ones on the south side of town, which the real estate on the south side of town and development's much more robust than what it is on, the north end of Tryon Street is, plagued with vagrancy and is probably the most undeveloped segment of that corridor. So, I think consideration for that is one of, well, that was certainly one of our considerations. It is true that these 2, 3, and 4 comps are closer to our property than the rest of them, but I think there's just so many dynamics in there that, our position continues to be that, that one brush doesn't paint everything, and that the property's in an interim use piece, and it has limitations, and its value, is best derived off of its highest and best use, which is what it's currently being used as, with the parking lot.
All right, for no more questions from commissioners.
Actually,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Beasley?
I'm just curious, for the record, I mean, we've made reference to County's Exhibit 5, although they haven't presented their case. Is that in evidence? I'm confused about what, that's my question is are the county's exhibits in evidence?
Well, I normally admit them all when we start out unless there's an objection. I didn't specifically, but unless there's an objection, I would admit those exhibits in evidence since they've been discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Adden.
Chairman Hunter, I'm going to just proceed with going ahead and calling my client, John Olson, to testify. I want to make sure that the commission is fully informed as to how the county has evaluated these parking lots uptown. So I call
Okay.
John Olson.
All right.
John, state your name, please.
John Olson.
And you're employed by Mecklenburg County Assessor's Office.
Yes, sir.
What are your duties and responsibilities?
I'm the commercial manager for all of the commercial properties in Mecklenburg County.
You just give the commission a little background about your education and qualifications.
I've been appraising as a fee appraiser and a assessment appraiser for 23 years. I originally started in Phoenix, Arizona. I appraised there for roughly 19 years. And then I've been in Charlotte here for 4 years.
And you're a certified real estate appraiser?
With the DOR and the state as an independent appraiser also.
I would offer Mr. Olson as an expert in the field of appraisal of commercial property in North Carolina.
Without objection, so admitted.
Now, you're familiar with the taxpayers' evidence in this case?
Yes, sir.
And they base their value, their $2 million value of these parking lots on the income approach?
That is correct.
Did you consider the income approach, and did the county consider the income approach in valuing this property?
Yes, they do.
And what other, did the county consider the cost approach in valuing this property?
Yes, we consider all three approaches to value.
What primary approach did the county use in determining the value was $3.3 million?
Market approach.
Okay. And what is the highest and best use for this property?
It could be multiple things. It's either multifamily or office, or it could be a mixed use of multifamily with retail on the bottom, which is a common trend right now, or office with retail on the bottom, or a mixture of all three, but it is commercial use.
Okay. Is use as a parking lot the highest and best use for these parcels?
No, sir.
And let's go through the county's exhibits, if you would. If you have the packet in front of you, let's just flip through and go through each picture. Exhibit 1, page 1, is a photograph of the subject parcel.
That is correct, sir.
And the street the street on the right side of that photograph is North Tryon Street.
Yes, that is being taken from North Tryon, facing basically southwest.
And the photo on page 2, that's sort of the alleyway from the side street, showing the
9th
smaller
Street.
parcel in the background.
Yes, sir. That's from 9th Street, I believe that it is.
Okay. All right. And exhibit 2 on page 3 is an aerial photo of the 2 parcels. I've starred those parcels.
Correct.
And all around on both sides of the the larger parcel are other parking lots.
That is correct.
All right. Page 4, that's it's aerial photograph just taken a little higher, showing the parcels. Is that correct?
That is.
What is the property used for directly across North Tryon Street? What is in that block directly across North Tryon Street from these parcels?
Well, as of January 119, that was vacant land that fronted Tryon, and behind that main parcel there on the front Tryon was the 2 Sky House towers of apartments, condo use, with a big parking garage for all the tenants and owners of the property.
Catty corner to the parcel, the block that the subject parcels are on, there's sort of a octagon shaped building. What is that?
That is a high-rise office building.
And these properties in the far right top corner, it shows I-277. That's the interstate that surrounds the uptown area.
That is correct, sir.
And page 5 is another aerial of the uptown area with the properties in sort of the upper right side of the aerial photo. Correct?
That is.
And Spectrum Center, that's where the Charlotte Hornets play basketball.
Yes.
And page 6 is just another aerial photo showing the Center City area. Is that correct?
Yes, that shows the entire downtown, uptown area.
And Mr. Faust agreed that the uptown area is basically the I-277 and 77 part of the county, correct?
Yes.
Then exhibit number 3 is simply just a map showing the subject parcels, and again, they're on Tryon Street, and the Center City is at the intersection of Tryon and Trade. Is that correct? That's sort of the heart of the Center City.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then exhibit 4. Let's get to exhibit 4. Is this your analysis of the property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have determined the value to be the total value of the 2 parcels, $3,324,900.
That is correct.
And that comes to $152.51 per square
Yes,
foot.
sir. Yes, sir, for the land.
Okay. And exhibit number 5, that's a grid. These have comps. Can you just take us through the different comps and explain? Let's start with comp number 1. What is comp number 1?
Give me a second to get to that exact same information, sir. Comp 1 is a parking lot that sold within about a quarter mile off of Brevard in 7th. It was just like the subject property. It's actually smaller. I'm trying to go from page to page, so bear with me as I do that, and it's turned sideways. So it is a considerably smaller lot. It might be in the future purchased with other properties for assemblage. We don't know that, but this is what it was sold as is.
It sold for $1,220,000 in July of 2018.
Correct, for 155.61 a foot.
And if you look at page 13 is a aerial photograph of comp number 1.
Yes, sir.
And it's just a parking lot by itself next to a parking lot and next to some vacant land, correct?
That is.
And this sale of $1.2 million occurred about 5-6 months prior to the revaluation date.
Yes, sir.
And let's go through comp number 2. Comp number 2, what is it?
Comp number 2 is also two vacant parcels, just kind of similar to the subject property. It is 2 parcels. They were bought together. They are the ones that are about a block and a half away from the subject property, and they are at the time of the valuation as being used as parking lots.
And it sold for $183 a square foot.
That is correct.
And a photograph of comp number 2 and a photograph of comp number 3 is on page 14 of the county's exhibits, correct?
That is correct. 13 was also bought the same way as 2, vacant land and being used as a parking lot.
So comp number 2 is 32,000 square feet, and it sold for $6 million in August of 2018.
That is correct.
And comp number 3 is 18,513 square feet and sold for $3 million in March of 2018.
That's correct.
So, and then comp number 4 is also on aerial photo, shows on aerial photo on page 14. It's a much larger parcel, 151,000 square feet, sold for $23 million, land only, correct?
Well, to be honest with that comparable, it was bought, all 4 parcels were bought together at the time of the purchase. There was 2 old structures on them. They're like industrial buildings, I believe, at the time. And they, at some point after the 17 sale, they demoed them, and in mid 18, they started building an apartment complex with retail and a parking garage, which you can see on page 1 of the exhibit. When you look at the subject properties photo, that parcel that we're talking about is what you see about a big apartment complex being built on right behind the subject property, basically. So that kind of shows you what they are doing in that area. They're redeveloping and changing it.
So was comp 4 an assemblage?
I don't remember all the deeds. We take the deeds and add them all together to encompass the whole once they combine them all. So I don't think so, but I really truly can't answer that question 100% honestly.
Okay. Now comp number 5 is a smaller 8,886 square feet, and it's close to the Spectrum Center, correct?
Yes, sir.
And aerial photo of it is on page 15, and it's just a parking lot in the middle of some other parking lots?
Correct.
And comp number 7 is 6,708 square feet. It's also a parking lot over near the Spectrum Center. And it sold for $1.2 million in June of 2018, correct?
That is correct.
Then comp 6 is over near the Charlotte Knights baseball complex. further away from the subject property?
Yes, sir. That was originally purchased when it was being used as a parking lot, and now they're constructing, I believe, an office building on that parcel.
But it sold for the 30,753 square feet, sold for 5.25 million in December of 2018.
Correct, sir.
And then comps 8 and 9, they are near. They're on off of South Tryon, or they're further away, right?
Correct. They're at the south part of the uptown area on Tryon Street.
And they went for a higher value per square foot, the 260 and 251 per square foot.
Yes, sir. That is the area of downtown that has gotten, obviously with this evidence shows that it's a higher price area in the downtown market.
And that's consistent with what Mr. Graham said. Mr. Graham was saying that the North Tryon isn't as expensive as the South Tryon area.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay. But the range in values of uptown, so the total range in values of these 9 comps goes from $140 a square foot to $260 a square foot.
That is correct.
And the county's value is in the lower range at $152 a square foot?
That is.
Does the county's value take into account similarities and differences between these properties and these comps?
Yes, we do.
Of these 9 comps, is any one in particular, do you think the most similar or the best comp of the 9?
That's a tough question. They all have their pluses and minuses. I guess comparable 1, 2, and 3 are probably your best sales based on location and what they were being used for at the time.
Was the county's 2019 general reappraisal conducted in compliance with all relevant standards of the Appraisal Foundation's Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice, USPAP?
Yes, sir.
Was the county's 2019 general reappraisal conducted in compliance with all relevant standards of the International Association of Assessing Officers, IAAO?
Yes, sir.
Did the county use recognized appraisal standards in determining the assessed value of the subject parking lots?
Yes.
Are you aware of any errors or inaccuracies in the county's determination of the value?
No, sir.
Is the county's value of the subject property consistent with the duly adopted schedule of values for the 2019 general reappraisal?
Yes, sir.
Is the county's value of the property consistent with USPAP standards?
Yes, sir.
County's value of the subject property consistent with IAAO standards?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Faust stated that he thought that valuing the property the same as other parcels was arbitrary. Would you comment on that?
Well, I'll comment on that multiple different ways. The fact of the matter is they're not valued all the same on downtown. You will see a pattern or a trend from Tryon or from the light rail. It's typically sometimes a little bit more valuable on Tryon and the rail or the south end. You will see it if you were to look at an overview of our entire land valuation of downtown, the south end of Tryon. There's some parcels that are valued almost up to $200 a foot. So to say it's all valued the same is not correct, but we use the same methodologies to treat everybody fairly.
Similar property, valued equitably?
Correct.
Now, the county's comps show a range of sale prices from $140 square foot to $260 square foot. But the assessed value of this property is within that range, correct?
That is correct.
And it's at towards the lower end of the range?
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, as an expert in the field of commercial appraisal, is the assessed value of this property at $3,324,900? Does that represent true value for these parcels as of January 1, 2019?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Graham, Mr. Faust, you may examine Mr. Olson.
Well, Mr. Olson, you stated that the values were consistent, basically with which end of town. Which I agree that the property on the south end of town, there's a difference between the north and the south end of town, obviously. But I would argue that if this property were to be in the 140 to 260 range, at 152, it
Mr.
would be,
Graham,
it'd be close.
you need to phrase it as a question if you can. If you want to examine it, you'll get a chance to.
Why would the property not be valued closer to the 140 mark than it is to the 152 mark?
Because it is on one of the heart streets, the prime roads of downtown. We can see it's a trend in the sales from old to current. We look at all sales, we go back many years to look for trends to see what things sell for and to establish our locational differences.
Okay.
Well, sir, let me ask you, in all honesty, there hasn't been a lot of movement on North Trine Street in the last few years. And then it started picking up when the motel across the street from us was sold for development of apartments and retail. So I don't understand how you feel like the whole trend that's been on North Trine Street. They didn't build the Spectrum Center on North Trine Street. They didn't build the ballpark on there. And we're just, we're stuck out in the middle. And I don't believe we're going to find anybody that would pay us $3,300,000 for that piece of property.
Jack, no, that's not a question.
Mr. Faust, you need to ask him a question, so you'll have a chance.
I'm sorry, I got a little off on the tangent. Would you pay that for it, sir?
Yes, I would love to have downtown land right now because it's at a premium. There's very little land left to be developed. That's why you see the property values going up so much, because the sales are dictating that. And that's the honest truth. I wish I could afford that, yes.
Well, now, sir, my question is, if you could afford it, of course, would you buy that piece of property, not knowing what the adjacent property owners was going to do and knowing that the county was moving out of the old Sears building?
Yes, I mean, it's prime real estate to be redeveloped.
Didn't answer my question, sir.
I guess I'm not understanding your question.
I think he said yes.
Yeah, he did say yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that then.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask Mr. Olson any more questions? Mr. Graham, Mr. Faust?
I don't think so. I don't.
Okay. All right. Did I hear you?
Well, I was wondering, of these examples of the 9 parcels that we've talked about here today, isn't there a lot of reasons for those properties being bought as such as development and to make more parking for the Spectrum Center, which has been a problem?
I don't know if I can actually answer that question because I don't know what everybody buys parcels for downtown. The ownership, I could tell you about the 2 comps that you might be referring, comp 5 and 7. That was not purchased by the Spectrum, the Charlotte Hornets in any way or anything like that. So those people could be trying to assemble all that land together to build something there. I don't know because that information has not been privy to me, but they were being bought as parking lots at the time.
Okay, the property over by the railroad, pardon me, I'm not real fast on finding what I want here, but isn't it already being developed? The big piece over by the railroad, I think, was 5 and 6. What's the one that was on North Ellis and 8th Street?
Your topic, are you asking about comparable number 4, sir? On 9th and Ellis or 8th?
Hold on just a minute.
It
was a picture. Hold on just a minute, please. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's on North Ellis between 8th and 9th. It's number 4.
What was your question again about that comparable?
Is it being developed now?
It is being developed right now, sir.
So would you say this has been a reasonable length of time since 2019 to start developing it with somebody who had development in mind for 2019?
I'm a little, I don't understand the question. What is?
Well, my question is, part of our discussion here is being that we're comparing all parking lots to the parking lot that we have. And my feeling is that the intent of most of these purchases were not to be parking lots.
So
my question is, so that the people that we're discussing this with knows that these parcels are really being intended to develop for high rises and stuff where you get big return on the land. Did I make myself clear there, sir?
I guess I didn't understand if I can comment on that if everybody wants me to comment. I didn't really get a question out of that.
Well, to justify, let me change this. Would you say that in order to justify the kind of prices that are being paid, that they were bought with the idea of going up rather than a surface lot?
I think our comparables show both scenarios is my answer. We have stuff that is still sitting as used as parking lots. And we also have 2 comparables, I believe, that we used that showed what they bought that parking lot for and changed it to. So whether they're holding it for investment or not, I don't know.
Well, okay. Are you aware how many square feet on the old North Carolina National Bank is built on the corner of Trade and Try?
Off the top of my head, no, sir, I am not.
Well, it's the same size as our lot, 22,000 square feet. And that property's worth a lot more than ours because they're getting rent for 60 some stories. And that's why we can't compare the price per square foot of our property to other 22,000 square feet, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
No, I believe you've made my point that the highest and best use would not be as a parking lot. It would be to develop a high rise there.
Well,
And people are buying the land for that.
Yes, that's why they're being bought. My question, do you understand they're paying more for these lots than they're worth?
What people buy them for is what considered market value. I mean,
Well, that's arbitrary because we don't know what they're buying them for. Thank you. No further questions.
thank you.
All right, further questions, Mr. Adden and Mr. Olson?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Questions from commissioners? Let me ask one, Mr. Olson. Of course, you've given your testimony about the market approach, the sales comparison approach. You said you did cost and also an income approach, but can you elaborate on that and why you chose the market?
Well, I mean, the biggest reason and by all standards is we're supposed to set a value at market standards. By Department of Revenue, we have to base on a sales ratio of 1, which is based on market standards. So to decide, part of a cross check on which methodology to use to derive the most marketable value to a property is to have market sales. And when you do the income approach, if that income stream is not large enough to capitalize to give you a reliable market number compared to the market approach, that tells you that the income approach is not applicable in that scenario. And it also tells you it's not at its highest and best use. The cost approach in this case is very similar to the market approach anyways, because 99% of the value is obviously in the land. And we look in the cost approach, the first step in the cost approach is determining the land value and then pricing out the improvements if there is any. So the cost and market in this scenario are very similar, or the same, to be honest with you. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, as a follow-up. So in looking at the income approach as RepPat Leasing LLC used and based their evidence on, you actually considered that, and I assume you came up with some figure. Do you have that figure?
I do not have, I mean, it would be similar. It would be actually probably a little bit higher off the top of my head when I looked at it, just because the risk of that property and the capitalization rate would be lower. The problem also with the income approach is we don't have enough market information on just parking garages. So when those are not parking garages, I'm sorry, parking lots. So when we have all those other parking lots that have sold, obviously they didn't sell on that income stream because some of those are really small where they're not even going to generate that $100,000 as the subject does. So I don't even know how you wouldn't even be able to do the income approach on them also, because the disparity between the market and the income approach is going to be so great.
Well, I guess my question is, you could do an income approach as
You can do it,
but when you're looking at the highest and best use, that doesn't generate the highest and best use. Is what I think I'm hearing you say, that you have to use the sales approach, and that generates a much higher value than the income approach or the cost approach. And your duty is to value it at its highest and best use. Am I understanding how you've done this?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what we've done, is we value it at its highest best use because that is our standard to have to do it by.
Okay. Questions from other commissioners? All right. At this time, we'll hear from Mr. Graham, Mr. Faust, as to your closing argument, and then we'll hear from the county, unless you want them to go first.
No, that's fine. You know, in closing for us, I mean, we continue to contend that the income approach for us creates a value proposition that is inconsistent with the value assigned to it by the county, and that we don't believe that the highest and best use as we're situated there is consistent with the values that are adjacent that have been assembled for construction of something that's going to create a much larger ROI. I'd be interested to know, and I didn't ask this question earlier, but what the going cap rate is for most of these construction projects that are going on along in the area. I would suspect that they're much higher than 5%. And I think now at the current value of the property we're at, we're closer to a 3% return or cap rate on the value as it sits with the new assessment. And for that reason, we take a position that we feel like the value, because of its interim use, is at the current time is closer to the $2,064,000 mark than it is the $3,300,000.
Okay, if there's nothing else from you, then Mr. Adden, closing argument.
Yes, as Commission well knows, the county's duty and obligation in assessing real property under general reappraisal under North Carolina General Statute 105-283 is to assess the property at its true value. True value, as defined by the statute, is meaning market value. That is the price estimated in terms of money at which the property would change hands between a willing and financially able buyer and a willing seller, neither being under any compulsion to buy or to sell, and both, and this is the key, both having reasonable knowledge of all the uses to which the property is adapted and for which it is capable of being used. All the uses that the property is capable of being used. Now, in this case, the income approach used by Mr. Graham and Mr. Faust, the income approach as a parking lot shows that this property is underutilized. A parking lot is not the highest and best use of the property because the income approach comes up with a value of $2 million, and yet properties all around in the uptown area are selling much higher at $140 to $260 per square foot. And so what the income approach shows is that a parking lot is not the highest and best use. And the county has to value property as its highest and best use. And so when you look at this, at the county's comps, this is not a situation of where the county is relying on one particular sale. We have multiple sales here, multiple sales of parking lots, single parking lots. If you look at the exhibits that I have, of these comps, exhibit page 13 shows comp number 1, which is a single parking lot next to other parking lots and next to vacant land. And that's comp number 1 sold for $155 a square foot. Exactly about what the county has. On page 14, you see comp number 2, a single parking lot, and it sold for $183 a square foot. And comp number 3, a single parking lot, sold for $162 a square foot. Comps 2 and 3 are like 2 blocks away from the taxpayer, the subject property. If you look at page 15, we have 2 parking lots that sold near the Spectrum Center. These are just single parking lots. And people are paying, let's see here, comp number 5 went for $140 a square foot, and comp number 7 went for $186 a square foot. So these sales, these are good sales. good sales of comparable properties, and they indicate that the value is, they support the county's value of $152 a square foot. Now, in order to prevail in this case, the taxpayers have to overcome the burden that the county's value is presumed to be correct. And to overcome that burden, they have to produce evidence that the county used an arbitrary method or an illegal method of valuation, and that the assessment substantially exceeds true value. Well, their evidence of an arbitrary method is that the county is valuing this property the same as similar properties. I think we would get in trouble if we were not valuing the property similar to other properties. Mr. Olson said, every property is unique and we take into account the different characteristics, but we have to be equitable. We have to be equitable, and that's exactly what they're accusing us of doing, is being equitable. They also say, Mr. Graham said, well, one brush does not paint everything. Well, the county in its general reappraisal of 2019, it says 360,000 parcels of land. And we did not go just one brush over everything. The county takes into account all characteristics of a particular property, but we do have to use certain standards. We have to use standards developed by USPAP, developed by IAAO, and all the evidence is that the county used appropriate standards in valuing this property. And when you look at these sales, you look at these comparable sales, it's clear that the county's value does not exceed true value. The comp number 3, which I pointed out to Mr. Faust, is an 18,000 square foot parcel that's about 2 blocks away, and it sold for $3 million. Well, the county's the subject parcels are larger than that, and so the 3.3 million is certainly right on point. So if the taxpayers have produced no evidence, no appraisal evidence to show that the county used an arbitrary or illegal method. They don't have an appraisal. They didn't bring in an appraiser. They don't have any evidence that we violated any standards. And I would submit to you that when you review those 9 comps, you see that the sales approach, the market approach, is the better approach for determining true value, willing buyer, willing seller. The market approach produces true value when you look at those comps, and that the county's value of 3.3 million should be upheld. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unless commissioners have a question, we will go in. Anybody have a question before we go into executive session? All right, Ms. Bendette, if you will put us in so we can deliberate in our executive session, and we'll be back with all of y'all as soon as we have been able to discuss and decide this matter. Thank y'all very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure why, but it appears that the appellants have left the WebEx. Maybe it wasn't clear that they needed to kind of wait until a decision had been made, but they are not in the attendee
Okay.
list anymore.
Steve, anyway, you have their phone number, could call them, or Robert?
Yeah, I have Mr. Faust's phone. I have Mr. Faust's phone number.
How about trying to call him and ask him if, say we're back and ready to finish this case, if he would like to. He may not have understood.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Faust, Robert Adden, the commission is back if y'all can log on.
Let's give you the number where he's actually at. He's not at this location right now. He's at the other office with Mr. Graham.
Oh, can you?
Do you have that?
No, I don't have that number. Do you have that number?
The office number is 04.
Yep. 567 56.
Good catch.
I do what I can.
Yeah, Mr. Graham, Mr. Faust, please. This is Robert Adden calling about the case that they're on.
Robert, what?
Adden.
That?
Yes.
Robert, if they don't want to log
Yes.
back on or can't, if you can put them on speakerphone, if they want to just.
Right.
if they just
Yeah,
want-
is Mr. Graham there?
Yes, I'm going to transfer you to his.
Thank you. Hey, the commission's back and is ready to rule if y'all can log back in.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks. Pardon me?
Use the same credentials.
Yeah, same credentials. Yeah, just log back in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
They're
you,
going to
Robert.
log back in. Yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
Thank you.
Any idea how long we're going to go virtual? Keep going virtual? How many more months?
I think it probably won't be next month. I think as people get their vaccines and feel more comfortable, and the building still has some limited, I think, admissions, don't they, Steve? Have they indicated anything about the building availability?
I have not heard an update that I can recall. And Alexandra might know better than me, but my understanding is that they toward the end of last year, they said that they were going to limit access to the building until at least through April. As far as I know, that has not changed. But as we get closer to April, it could get extended out a little bit farther.
We would like to get back in person when we can, I think, safely. So I miss seeing my commission members and Steve and Linda and Robert. You've been a pretty much of a regular yourself.
I know. I miss my trips up to Raleigh. I always enjoyed coming up there to Raleigh.
And we wouldn't have to put up with your computer problems either.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
By the way, you might want
as
to run a speed test on your computer. I just had somebody show me how to do that the other day. You just have to Google it, and it comes up. You just run it, and it shows what your speed is. It doesn't. He told me it didn't take a whole lot to do a Zoom or WebEx speed, but
it started out fine with this hearing, and then all of a sudden it sort of just froze up. So I don't know. Yeah, I will. I haven't had any problems with other conference calls involving multiple people, lots of people, and I don't know, for some reason the WebEx and all. But anyway, yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay, so you've had,
Mhm.
when you say multiple calls, you mean Zoom or Teams,
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams? Yeah.
Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had problems, calls with Zoom and Teams involving, 10 people or
Yeah.
more, and no issues at all. So,
Well, and I
anyway.
don't know if you want to stay on when we get through here
Yep.
for a minute and see. What you might could try is logging completely off. I had to do that Monday. I logged completely off, shut down my computer, and then I came back up and it was fine. So you might want to see if Alexander will stay on a minute and see if it's improved. If
Yeah,
not,
that'd be
I don't know
fine.
what to suggest. And you might
Yeah,
also
that'd be fine. Thanks. Yeah.
try your iPhone. I was able to get my iPhone to log in cellular and also
Yeah.
my iPad. So those are alternatives.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Graham, I think I see you coming back on. So you have your video? Okay, I see you.
How are you this afternoon? Good morning.
Okay. All right, we have you back with video and audio. Okay. The commission has deliberated and decided this matter, and it voted unanimously to support the county's evaluation. Mr. Graham, you had some evidence of income approach, but the county's evidence showed that its highest best use was from the market approach, and that's what they have to go by, and we have to as well under our statutes and case law. So I know that you think that the income approach is significant, but it's just one of three, and the county has to use its highest and best use, which their comps showed, and your evidence did not really dispute based on overall what we had to consider before us. So we do appreciate your attendance and your presentation, and thank you very much. Give Mr. Faust also the same. Let me ask Mr. Adden, Mr. Graham, you will get a written opinion probably within 90 days, and that letter will also set out any rights that you have regarding this matter. Anything else, Mr. Adden?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Graham?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So, all right, we will stand adjourned tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we've got two matters to hear.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Alexandra, you staying on?
Yes, I can stay on, but just give me a minute so that I can end the event and stop
Yeah.
the live stream and everything.
Okay.